be cool if she can find someone that takes Saturdays. I guess the other couple must be moving, or didn't they say they closed on Wednesday?
Oh, on that house? Yeah, yeah. They got that whole house thing going. So.
Are you still driving up from Floresville?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How long of a drive is that?
It's 45 minutes. Yeah.
I see how they're doing rap again.
Yeah.
Course.
We've been doing it this whole time online. Yeah. We turned it from a 3-day workshop into a 1-day workshop. And we're doing it every Thursday for a year now. Over a year. Yeah. People Zoom in from all over the place. So I was going to discuss this book, Words of My Perfect Teacher. When I met my Lama, probably 2007, I would say, I took refuge in the 3 jewels, which is like accepting him as a teacher, and accepting Buddhism as a path to awakening. And when I asked him how I should practice, he said, study the words of my perfect teacher. This is a famous text. And what's great about Buddhism is it's...
But wait, when he said study the practices of his perfect teacher, who did he mean? Buddha?
Well, yeah, so that's kind of what I was going to say. So it was written by Patrul Rinpoche back in the 1800s. And Patrul Rinpoche was a famous Buddhist teacher, right? And so, obviously this comes from the wisdom tradition of Buddhism, but Buddhism literally, they don't care if you worship Jesus or whatever your wisdom tradition is. You can still use Buddhism for your path. It's all about mind training. It's about being a better version of yourself, right? So, like, Patrul Rinpoche will say to honor your teacher and your teachings, right? Like they are your life's blood. Like the fact that you found these teachings and somebody that's willing to teach you in this life, you should be so happy. Like that's almost impossible to find a good teacher and good teachings, but in a very real way, you could take what I just said and say, how fortunate to come across the Bible, how fortunate to have found a church that you like, how fortunate to have found a good pastor, how fortunate that Jesus came into your life. You should honor that and revere that, and that should give you a sense of happiness and joy. You know what I mean? And the same thing for anything, there's people that are secular and they don't believe in anything, but they're doing yoga, and it gives them a lot of joy and serenity, and now they're part of this yoga community, and they meet up on Wednesdays and Saturdays and do yoga with their friends. Patrul Rinpoche would say, what a lovely thing. Like, you should appreciate that. That should stir up joy in you, that you found a yoga teacher and that you have a yoga class and you have a community. So think on those things. If you think of those things, it'll improve your thought life. You know what I mean? And you can say that about anything positive in your life. If you will concentrate on it long enough, you'll find that as bad as you have it, other people have it a lot worse. Like a lot of us are super fortunate to just, whatever situation we're in, there's something to find that's positive about it. Does that make sense? And so that's what all these teachings are about. Any thoughts or questions about that?
So I thought Buddhism was its own religion.
Yeah, so, that often people do think of Buddhism as religion, and there's millions of Buddhists all over the world, and there's many, many different types of Buddhism, right? But historically, if you go back,
Different types of Buddhists?
yeah, so you have Zen Buddhism, you have Tibetan Buddhism, you have Pure Land Buddhism, you have Theravada Buddhism, you have Mahayana Buddhism.
And what differentiates, just generally speaking?
So what they say is, 2,600 years ago, Buddha became enlightened. And when he became enlightened, he saw how the universe really worked. What he really saw was we create much of our own problems, right? And so he created a training to help us with meditation and mind training and working with our thoughts. We can not only improve our own lives, the quality of our own lives, but we can learn to live together and help each other and work together and be a better society, right? Buddha would say back in that time they believed in reincarnation, right? And so, whether this is true or not, we a lot of people think that Buddha believed that we reincarnate, we die and reincarnate, right? So one of the teachings in Buddhism is that if we improve our thought life and we study and we meditate and we practice, when we die, we're reborn in a life where we find the teachings earlier, we find happiness earlier, we start helping people earlier, and life just keeps improving every time we're reborn, right? Until ultimately we come to a point where we've taken care of all these traumas and all this hatred and all this greed and all this negativity and all these hang-ups until we're almost enlightened. Like,
Is that what they call nirvana?
yeah. And
so once you reach that, you no longer reincarnate?
so you basically become a Buddha, and a Buddha doesn't reincarnate. And what happens to a Buddha, we don't know. We can say that a Buddha becomes part of the universe, and any good thing that happens, anytime there's somebody sharing kindness, anytime there's somebody giving somebody who's thirsty some water, anytime somebody giving somebody who's hungry some bread, that's Buddha. The Buddha energy is there, affecting that, making sure that happens, But also, before enlightenment, before someone becomes a Buddha, there's something called a Bodhisattva. And a Bodhisattva is right on the edge of becoming a Buddha, where he doesn't have to be reborn, he or she doesn't have to be reborn, but they choose not to become a Buddha. They choose to keep coming back life after life after life, so they can give that person a drink of water, so they can give somebody that bread, so they can go visit people in jail, so they can do nice things and help others.
So at what point do they get to make the choice, and who gives them that choice?
So there's a vow that you can take. So if you get to a point where you're getting rid of your own hang-ups and your own fears and your own ego and anxieties and things like that, you kind of know, if this is your belief system, you start saying, you know what, in about 3 more lives, I feel like I might attain Buddhahood. I'm going to take this vow that I want to be the very last person to enter into Buddhahood. I'm going to take this vow that I will not stop reincarnating, that I will keep coming back and helping everyone. I want everybody to go into the banquet, and I'll be the last one to shut the door and lock it behind me once we're all in the huge banquet.
Have you met anyone that is like high up in enlightenment?
Yeah, so this guy right here is, I was going to put the picture here. So this is Lama Tuku Sori Dechen Rinpoche. So this is my teacher, and he lives in India. And I went and spent about 3.5 weeks in India with him at his monastery.
You did, or you want to?
I did. Yeah, this is in 2011.
How did you find him?
Long story. So I was studying meditation at a Shambhala center, and a friend of mine came and dropped off some Tupperware dishes, and she was rushing back out the door, and she said, "Hey, I'm going to the airport to pick up a teacher. Do you want to go with me?" And I was just sitting there. It was in between like meditation sessions and stuff, and I said, sure. And I was going through a divorce, and I was sobering up. I was just getting into AA and all this stuff. And so I said, sure. So I jumped in the car with Lisa Harkema and her 2 daughters. And we took off to the San Antonio airport, and we were sitting there talking, and I turned around, and there was this Tibetan Lama walking with his luggage, and Lisa said, there he is, you know. I was like, whoa, wild. And so he was in town for about a week doing teachings, so I didn't stay at Lisa's house, but every day I'd go home, go to work, go home, take a shower, and rush over to her house, and then we would go take him to the place he was delivering the teachings. And then afterwards we would go out to eat, and we'd go back to Lisa's house, and we'd stay up to like midnight talking. I would race back to Floresville, go to sleep, go to work, get up, take a shower, and rush back.
Oh, that's this guy.
Yep. Lama Tuku Soyi Techen Rinpoche. And so after that, he became my teacher. And
so is that something you ask them and they grant it, or how does that come about?
yes. So, you know, potentially if you're in close proximity to a Tibetan Lama or a teacher, you can request their teachings. And you can request to be their student. If you only know them from afar, or you only see them in, you know, large gatherings or online, you can follow certain teachers and certain lamas, and you could even pray that prayer to yourself that you're requesting the lama from afar to be your teacher. But then, you know, the Buddha himself is a teacher, right? We have everything that he said written down. We have commentaries about things that he said. All the great teachers since the Buddha have written stuff down and created teachings and commentaries and stuff. And so that's what we call the Dharma, or the Dhamma, is the teachings of Buddhism. But like I say, Buddhism looks different. You know, it may look very well be the religion of Thailand, or it might be the religion of Burma. And you know, you might find, you know, Christianity has grown, you know, so much. I mean, it might be equal everywhere now. It's like mostly everywhere is like half Buddhism and half Christianity and something else. But my understanding and the tradition that I follow is that it's non-sectarian. It's not, we're not trying to convince you to become a Buddhist. We're trying to help you become a better whatever you are. Does that make sense? And so there's no conversion in Buddhism. There's no, where you're out on the street corner with a megaphone saying you're going to hell if you don't become a Buddhist or whatever. You don't sit on a bus and next to somebody and try to convince them to become a Buddhist. Yeah. It's just mind training. It's just another path to find happiness. And if you do believe in it and you say that it is your religion and you treat it like a religion, then what you believe is everything that I do in this life has consequences. I may or may not be reborn again, and I take my karma with me. So if I go around in this life punching people in the nose, in my next life, somebody's going to punch me in the nose, because that's karma catching up to me, you know? And so the best thing that I can do in this life is practice what the Buddha said, spend time in meditation, be kind to others, do good deeds, do good deeds for lack of a better term, and that karma will find me in the next life, you know. And then ultimately I'll get closer and closer and closer to enlightenment, and then eventually I may not choose to come here anymore at some point, you know. And it's very beneficial to somebody like me, right? So last night I went with Charlie to a rave, and it was like down on St. Mary's Street, and I didn't know what it was. You know, it was $10 a ticket, and it said it was electric dance party. And really, I thought it was a 90s music. I thought it was about 90s music. It wasn't until I got there and met up with Charlie and her friends that I realized that it wasn't anything to do with 90s music. It was some kind of rave, right? And there was a DJ, and there was all these lights and all these little kids dancing and all this stuff, you know. And so it was fun. Like, I'd never been to something like that before. It was wild, and it was fun just to see the light show and hear the music and be with my daughter and her friends. And we were all probably the oldest people there, you know. Compared to the kids that were there, Charlie looked like she was like 40, and I looked like I was like 80. These were like high school kids. But it was fun, and it started at 9, and I was already driving home by 11. You know, so I didn't stick around very long. But on the way home, I was driving home by myself, and I turned off the radio, and I just had the thought. The whole time I was at this rave, I didn't think about drinking alcohol.
Yeah.
I didn't wonder if somebody had drugs that I could get from them.
Yeah.
I didn't look at any girls, try to hit up and flirt with some girl. I was literally just sitting there enjoying being with my daughter and her friends and listening to music, you know. And for some people that have, like, lived the perfect life, you know, that's not a big deal. Like, duh, of course, you know. But literally, compared to where I've come since I've heard the Dharma, since I met Lama Tuku, since I've gone to India, since I started meditating, that's a miracle. That is a miracle that I could go someplace on Friday night that serves alcohol, where there's people smoking weed, doing coke probably, dropping Molly or whatever they're doing, and full of, scantily clad women, practically wearing bikinis, and not try to do the alcohol, not try to do the drugs, and not look at all the pretty girls, much less trying to hit on them. That is my mind training. Years and years and years of studying Buddha's word, of meditating, of trying to figure out why I try to self-medicate with alcohol, why I try to self-medicate with drugs, why I try to self-medicate with sex. All these things, until I've come to some realization that I don't need any of that to be happy. That happiness comes from being with your family, listening to cool music, doing something interesting on Friday, and then driving home and going to sleep, you know? It's taken a long time to get me there. So you could say, if in part of this journey of studying the teachings of Buddha, let's say that at this point I died tomorrow, right? I'm thinking that karma is going to follow me into my next life. And in my next life, I may not ever have any issues with alcohol. I may never have any issues with drugs. I may never have any issues with sex, because I conquered those demons in this life. I don't carry that karma with me into my next life, right? And so being born that much ahead of the game, now I can really be happier sooner and possibly meet another Tibetan Lama or another teacher, or find Buddhism earlier, or whatever tradition, whatever therapy, whatever, and I get a head start on my journey. So instead of waiting until I was 35 to start conquering these demons, maybe in my next life I'm not struggling with alcohol or drugs or sex, and I meet a teacher, or say I pursue mental health as a psychiatrist or something. Maybe at the age of 18 or 17 I go to college and I really start working with how the mind works and start helping other people and helping myself. as a doctor or a physician or a pharmacist or a therapist or whatever, because I've already got the healing that I needed, and I've overcome so many of my own demons in my previous life that now in the next life I can get to work right away helping other people. I don't have to conquer all these nasty demons first.
So, what is, in Buddhism, where do they think all this negativity and demons, where do they originate from? Why are they in the world?
Yeah, so that's a good question.
I mean, what is their belief? In Christianity, we believe that Satan is a fallen angel.
Yeah.
And opened the door with
Right.
his followers that followed him for evil.
Absolutely.
What do the Buddhists think?
So they believe, and this is only my own understanding, right? Is that from birth, because everyone says, look at the baby, look at the beautiful baby. Oh, the baby's hungry, the baby's tired, the baby is dirty, the baby needs a bath, whatever.
We develop an ego.
We develop this ego. And suddenly we're like, who the hell are they talking about? Oh, I must be the baby. Oh, wait a minute, wait, what is this? Hey, this is my hand. This is my hand. I must be me. Okay, I'm me. Yeah, I'm hungry. Yeah, I need a bath. Yeah, I need a new toy. And then that ego starts solidifying as we get older. And then we start dealing with selfishness. And then now, that's my toy. Not your toy, my toy. You can't play with my toy. And now you got greed. And then now some kid's cuter than you or younger than you, and he starts getting attention. And that pisses you off because you used to be the baby. Now there's jealousy. Now that kid's getting all the attention. I hate that kid. Now there's hatred. And when nobody's looking, I go there and push him down. Now there's violence. And on it goes. And that ego just becomes more and more solid. And what it is ignorance of our true nature. Buddha would say that we were all born with the Buddha nature. That we were perfect from the beginning. But because of this ego issue, we started attaching greed, envy, lust, addiction, all this stuff to me and mine. And so it becomes this demon within us instead, and it's not real. It's not really there. It's created within our own minds.
So in Buddhist communities, do they treat their babies differently?
No, I mean,
They still have the same issues.
yeah. Basically, they just hear the words of the Buddha earlier, I would say.
But I mean, do they do anything to try to not emphasize the ego?
I would assume.
Starting,
Yeah, I would assume that, they start learning, in the Tibetan, that I'm a little bit more familiar with, is that you're taught from the cradle about loving kindness and generosity and karma and putting others before yourself, so forth and so on. So the ego probably doesn't become as established as it does in the United States or abroad. Yeah.
So, isn't there a point though, because we have this need to self-preservation, so if you're always putting everyone ahead of yourself, how do you preserve yourself?
Yeah.
Or you just let yourself fade into the background like you have no value yourself.
Mm-hmm. So that can be tricky, right? So if you're at the stage where you realize that life is a dream, that you've been born over and over again, that you've learned all these various lessons, and you've been a male, you've been a female, you've gone through divorces, you've been a saint, you've been a sinner, you've been a criminal, you've been a doctor, and then you get to a point where you're at that bodhisattva stage. You realize that this is just another life. Like, it really ultimately doesn't matter. Like, there's stories of these bodhisattvas that are advanced beings seeing a tiger cub starving, and this is gonna be shocking to our culture, but they say that this bodhisattva cut off his own arm and gave it to the tiger cub so that the tiger cub didn't starve to death, right? That seems very extreme. A less extreme version of that is you have something to eat, but you have money in the bank, and the person, as the homeless person, doesn't. So instead of you eating that McDonald's hamburger and fries, you're like, you know what, I can miss a meal. What the hell? I'll get, I got to go back to work, and then I get off at 5. I can get something to eat at 5. So on my lunch break, I'll just give my lunch to this homeless guy or whatever. And then you go back to work hungry, and you work. And then you get off at 5, and you go back to McDonald's and get another meal. You know what I mean? That would be considered bodhisattvic activity. The fact that you had the compassion and the insight and even noticed somebody was hungry. Even that, even if you're at the stage where you can't give them your meal because you're hungry and you got to work and you're tired, and the fact that you notice somebody who's suffering and say, the right thing to do would probably be to give this person the food, but I ain't gonna do it today because I'm freaking hungry. But I see them, and it hurts my heart, and I know I should probably give them my food. God bless them. I hope the next person does, but I'm gonna eat this Big Mac and fries. While that seems selfish, the fact that you notice the person and it hurts your heart shows that you have bodhicitta, that you're awakening, that you're on the path, And so we might be various ways on, various parts on this path, and we might slide back and forth. But ultimately, it's not about people stepping on you, walking on you, and being a doormat or a rug, right? There's a huge difference in being at a stage where you know that this is a dream and ultimately doesn't matter, and you've had thousands and thousands of lifetimes, and then you probably wouldn't wind up in a situation where you're being abused or neglected or something like that, because now you're making various choices and you've created such good karma that you're probably not winding up in negative situations. But if you did, you might be in that situation with an alcoholic that beat you up or something, because in the past life you chose that so that you could teach that person something. Like you could teach them how to turn away from alcohol and find sobriety and peace of mind and whatever, right? But you would know that intuitively. You wouldn't just get beat up every day and think, well, I must be a bodhisattva. I must have chose this in a past life. No, the answer is you need to get the hell out of that situation. You need to take care of yourself. You need to set healthy boundaries. You need to be wherever you are on the path. Nobody deserves to get beaten up. Nobody deserves to be mistreated or lied to or stolen from or any of those things, right? You are setting healthy boundaries and you're taking care of yourself the best you can where you are on the path. Does that make sense?
So you use the word, you chose this. So when you reincarnate, do you get to choose what kind of life you come back to?
If you're at that level. If you are at this bodhisattvic level.
So why would you choose to come back life to have hard lessons still.
To ultimately help other people.
So that's the whole purpose, is love. Well, in Christianity, it's all love. In Buddhism, it's love, but helping. I guess they're really
yeah, bodhicitta. It's opening your heart to the world.
What if you're tired of this life? Can you choose? Can you pray to someone, or can you meditate to be taken out of it? Is that possible? And just say, I want a do-over?
I want a do-over.
I
picked the wrong life.
I want to do a different life. Yeah.
So, like I say, you talk to very different Buddhists, and they will give you different answers, right? So one answer is there's something called Pure Land Buddhism. And in Pure Land Buddhism, you can do practices and prayers and chants to not be reincarnated on this earth. You can be reincarnated in like a heavenly realm where it's easier to attain Buddhahood, where life isn't so hard.
Why wouldn't everyone choose that?
Well, so here's the thing. They say that you're born in this heavenly realm where even, everything is made of jewels, and the sidewalk is gold, and the flowers are singing the teachings of Buddha, and there's angelic music coming from the pink clouds, and the music are songs about the Buddha's teachings, and enlightenment is just there at your grasp. You don't have to suffer. But as soon as you reach out and you grab that, and you feel the power of that love, and you move into that consciousness where you're one with everything, you're like, there's a whole planet, or multiple planets, or billions of planets where people don't know this. And they're not liberated, and they're not free. And some woman is getting hit by a drunk alcoholic every night. I pray that I go back and I'm born as that woman, or I can go into that life and somehow reach that alcoholic so he never hits anybody again, so that he learns that his own suffering is causing him to do that. And if I can lead him out of his own suffering in some way, I'm going to do that. I'm not going to stay here and enjoy peace and liberation and complete understanding and complete love when all these other people are suffering. So I have to go back. I can't truly enjoy this until everybody's here with me.
Yeah.
So that's one answer. But like I say, I would the bodhisattvas. There may be many bodhisattvas, but they don't know that they're bodhisattvas because they're not fully down to the part of the journey where they completely understand that they chose the thing, right? So you may have made some weird vow when you read something and you met a lama and he told you something and you said this vow. And so it affected your karma and where you were born and who you were born. But chances are, if you're still struggling with issues yourself and you're still trying to figure out why you're not happy, and then at the same time you're being abused or lied to or cheated on, or your boss is a jerk, the simple answer is, you may be a bodhisattva, but you're not omniscient. You don't know why you're there. So the best thing to do is get out of that situation. Be healthy. Don't be in a toxic relationship or a toxic job, or be in danger. Work on yourself. Be safe. make good choices, and continue that journey, you know. And then eventually, if you come to a place where, um, you know, you see a tiger and they're hungry and you decide to chop off your arm and that's nothing to you, then you know, okay, well, I must be a pretty advanced, but high, um, bodhisattva, because I'm not even worried this life is a dream. I remember all these past lives. I remember all these incarnations. I understand the Buddhist teachings. I have no suffering within myself. I've lost all my hang-ups. I've vanquished all my demons. I can live without an arm. Now, if you're at that level, God bless you. But the rest of us are still trying to make better decisions and take just one more little step ahead of the game so that we can find the teaching a little earlier in the next life. Does that make sense?
I have two more questions. So, like, for Christians, we have the Bible, and we're taught that whatever you're going through in life, or whatever question, you can find the answer in that book.
Mm-hmm.
Is there something that the Buddhists, is there like one book that they also feel any questions you might have or any difficulties, that book will give you the answer?
No, there are books that are considered canonized, and there's 3 baskets of teachings that are said to go back to the original Buddha.
And the original Buddha dates back to what? As far as we know.
500 years before Jesus.
And how do they know that? I mean, what was that was in Tibet?
It was in India.
In India, northern India, like Nepal.
Because there's records and there's tablets and there's inscriptions and there's temples and there's reigns of kings and stuff that just like they can date the Egyptians by the stuff that they find. And even in Egypt it says during this reign of King so and so or whatever. It's same thing in India. It's like when Buddha was born, this certain king was ruling, or there were these kings. When Buddha was part of when he was older in his life, there was this reign of kings and things happening. And so there's records and inscriptions and all kind of stuff to date that back.
So in India, before Buddha, before this 500 years before Christ, what did the Indian people believe at that time?
So there was mixed different philosophies and teachings and stuff. Yeah, there was early Hinduism. Trying to think of the name of that. Hinduism is really like our terminology for it. It's also the Dharma. It's called something Dharma. But even in early Hinduism, there were different traditions and different ways of doing. There was priests that would sacrifice like oxen and animals and do these rituals. And then there was other aspects of Hinduism that would say we don't have to sacrifice animals. We just have to do these prayers. I don't agree with all that stuff. And then there was somebody that disagreed with them and said, we don't do those prayers, we do these prayers, And so, yeah. And there was homeless wanderers that were trying to find the answer themselves. They were ascetics. And so they were like, I don't really believe in killing animals. I don't really believe in those prayers. I don't really believe in that. I'm just going to take off my clothes and wander up in the mountains by myself for 80 years and see if I can figure it out myself, And then there was other groups that said, hey, I'm trying to figure out the answer. I know you guys are trying to figure out the answer. Why don't we just live together in like a little community and we'll try to figure it out together, And so you had ascetics that lived in communities. You had ascetics that lived out in the forest by themselves. You had ascetics that would live near town and get, like, beg food from town, and you had ascetics that would live off of plants and roots and berries and stuff, and would never even come close to town, and they were all just trying to figure it out.
And the last question is, does anyone know, or how can anyone know if they, like, is there a way to know how many past lives? Or is there such thing as a pure, which means it's their first life? Like, because at some point there had to be pures, because,
Yeah.
have a second life, come back a second time, you had to have about the first,
Yeah.
So I don't understand all that. Like, in this day and age, are there still pures that are born that it is their first life?
Yeah. So that's a great question. So it's really funny, right? Because,
And like, do you feel like you're reincarnated?
yeah, sure.
You do?
Yeah. No religion, no philosophy, and even science doesn't have a good answer for the question that you're asking, right? And what you're asking for is an origin story. Like, how did this all start? How did all these lives first start, right? How did that first soul or mind stream or whatever begin?
Well, with Christians, though, Christians believe Adam and Eve.
Right, so you got the Adam and Eve story.
And Eve yeah.
Yeah.
But though we know, even as Christians, that really is just a story.
Yeah.
That really, to help people grasp.
Mm-hmm.
That there probably wasn't really an Adam and really an Eve.
Right.
It's just the concept.
Right. So, although you could say, like, that's the origin story of humans, you could go one step before that and say, okay, well, there was, God said, let's make them like us, the first people. And so who was us? Maybe it was God and the angels. So then, when did God make the angels? Okay, so then he made the angels at a certain time. Okay, then let's go a step further. When did God appear?
Yeah.
How did God come into being, right? Okay, well, he's been around forever. How can he be around forever? We only know a beginning and an end in our human minds, right? So even in Christianity, where you can explain an origin story with humans, there's still not an origin story for God. He's just always been around. And so that's basically where we're at with your question, is like, was there ever a first soul in Buddhism? Buddhists wouldn't use the word soul. Buddhists don't believe in soul. It's more like a mind stream. It's like energy.
They don't believe in souls?
So,
or what do they call it?
It's tricky. Let's just say this mind stream, for all intensive purposes, is just like a soul. We might as well call it a soul, right? Because it's picking up karma, it's living all these multiple lives, it's being reincarnated, it's on this journey to becoming a bodhisattva or whatever. But at the end of the journey, you find out it was no individual thing called Kylie or Nancy. It was just this energy, right? We kept giving it a name. We kept calling it a soul. So therefore, it functions the same as a soul in Christianity, right? Okay, so when you say that there was an Adam and Eve, people might say, well, that's dumb. There's no Adam and Eve. That's just some kind of Christian superstition, right? And then you say, okay, well, what do you believe? And they say, well, I believe in science. Okay, well, what does science say? Well, there was nothing, and then there was this big bang.
But what made the Big Bang?
Yeah, and then suddenly there's all these people and planets and stuff.
But there had to be something that ignited that Big Bang.
Right,
so
and then what was there before the Big Bang?
Yeah.
They say that all the matter in the world, if you sucked all the space out of it, it would be the size of a BB. And that somehow this BB popped into existence, and then this BB exploded, And when it flew out in the far-flung reaches of the universe, or whatever was not there, because there was nothing there, it flew out into the nothing that wasn't there and cooled down. It became planets and suns and all this
Yeah,
stuff,
but
right?
where did the BB come from? You know,
Exactly.
you keep going on and on and on.
So then somebody says, well, that's dumb. Christianity's dumb. There was no Adam and Eve, and definitely there was no Big Bang, because where'd the BB come from? And you say, okay, well, what do you believe? Well, I'm a Buddhist, so I believe something different. Okay, well, what is that? Well, according to the Buddha, it's not even worth thinking about, because whenever I started thinking that I was this soul, it happened so far back that it's inconceivable. It's literally inconceivable for me to go back and understand how long this earth has been here, how long space has existed, how long I've been reincarnating in all these bodies. It's a mystery. It's a complete mystery. And one of the things that is interesting about Buddhism is, like, when Buddha was asked questions like that, he wouldn't answer them. And they called that the noble silence. And I'll tell you a quick story. So this guy's a rich, kind of well-to-do guy. He keeps seeing all these Buddhist monks, and they're all following Buddha around, and but he's really curious, right? So he looks at his job, he looks at his money, he looks at his house, and he's like, it's cool to have all this stuff, but I don't understand the universe. Like, I don't understand how this all came about, So I'm going to shave my head, get some robes, I'm going to join these monks and these nuns, and I'm going to follow this dude around, and I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to understand, right? So he quits his job, he gives his house to his family, he gives away his clothes and all his horses and everything, and he goes and he approaches Buddha, and he says, I want to take the vow, I want to become a monk, so forth and so on. And so he becomes a monk. Well, he follows everybody around, he hears all the teachings, he lives this life, and after about 6 months, he starts getting really pissed off and really upset. And the more he thinks about it, he's been doing this for 6 months, and he still doesn't know where the BB came from, or who made God, And so he storms up to Buddha, and he starts cussing him out. And he says, I've been here for 6 months. I gave up my house. I gave up my horses. I gave up my job. I gave up everything to be a monk. And you still haven't told me where the BB came from. Or how Adam and Eve and God and what the hell, how the Big Bang happened. And Buddha said, did I ever tell you that I was going to teach you that? Did I ever approach you and say I was going to teach you how the universe came about and all that stuff? And the guy said, no, I guess you did, He said, but I just assumed that you would teach us that. And Buddha said, I never said that I would teach you that or show you that or even that I know that. I've never even said that I know those answers. And the guy says, well, you have to be. You're the Buddha. You're the enlightened one. Tell me where the BB came from. Tell me who created God. Tell me how long the universe has been around. How many incarnations I've had on this planet. And Buddha remained silent. He refused to answer. He just kept walking. And they said that was the only answer that Buddha could give, is that silence. Is that whatever that is, it's a mystery, And even if Buddha had answered in some way, it wouldn't have been important, because still, it's for each one of us to find that answer within ourselves. We could say, well, Buddha said that God was created by another God before him. And so we would either believe that or not believe that. Well, Buddha said that a BB came out of a BB gun. some god shot the BB gun. And then you would make that a religion, or you wouldn't make that a religion. So there's really no answer. There's really no answer to that question. It's not that there's not an answer, but whatever that answer is, only you can find it, because that way only you will believe it. If you have that revelation, that discovery, and it's true to you, then nobody can convince you that it's not true, because you know. But if I come and tell you that my pastor says, or Buddha says, or Muhammad says,
Still have doubts.
then you will always have doubts.
Still wonder.
Mm-hmm.
So if we look around, everyone on this planet, we're all on a journey.
Mm-hmm.
But is it safe to say that when we look at other people, they will be coming back and doing another life too?
If you believe in Buddhism,
Reincarnation?
or even in
'Cause, like,
Hinduism,
there's people that I know, and I'm not being critical or judgmental, just fact.
mm-hmm.
They have no clue. They don't even think about these things.
Absolutely.
They live, like I call them bump-alongs. They just bump along the surface.
Mm-hmm.
They just deal with what brings to them that day. They
Mm-hmm.
don't really give any deep thought to much of anything.
Yeah.
I used to be critical of those people. I have a
Yeah.
sister and brother-in-law that live like that.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what? They're happy
Right?
because they don't, even though they don't deeply think about anything,
Mm-hmm.
they don't worry about anything.
Mm-hmm.
And I finally have come at this age that I like and envious, because
Yeah.
they are so much happier in their narrow world.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But yet they aren't enlightened, and they don't think about, they're not bad people,
Yeah.
but they don't expand their thinking of
Mhm.
helping, reaching
Right.
out
Mhm.
and helping. They just deal with what's right in front of their face.
Right. And, according to Buddhism, that would be a form of ignorance, even though they...
You know what they say, ignorance is bliss.
Yeah. Ultimately, they're not happy. Nobody is really happy because they're suffering in this world, They're still going to grow old, they're going to get sick, and they're going to die. So those are at least 3 sufferings that they'll have to face, right? No matter if they're ignorant to everything else, they live in a huge mansion, they got a pool, they drink margaritas every night, and their chef cooks them something to eat. They're still going to have to face old age, suffering, and death,
None of us
sickness,
escape that.
sickness and death, right? So there's no escape from suffering.
And
But
what purpose does that serve in Buddhism, suffering? In Christianity, we're taught that that's us carrying our cross.
Yeah.
Why should we expect to escape suffering? Look how Christ suffered
yeah,
for us. So we all have our cross to bear, is what they say.
Right.
So in Buddhism, what's the purpose? What does suffering serve?
we can talk more about that next time.
Okay.
I'll just say quickly, those are 3 things that you can contemplate. What am I doing today? You chose to come to Woke House. You chose to come hear the teachings. You chose to have be a part of community and have these type of conversations and dialogue, and that is improving the quality of your life, and it's attributing to your karma. It's creating good karma and good merit for you to do this, because that you're going to grow old, you're going to get sick, and you're going to die. So if you're going to do any good thing, it's now. So Buddhism will say those 3 things serve as a reminder that you only have today. Like, if you're going to be a better person, you got to be a better person today. If you're going to give up your McDonald's to the homeless person, today's the day to do it, because tomorrow I might get sick. Tomorrow I might die. Every day I'm growing older, I'm getting closer to death. Do I choose to read some of Buddha's teachings and do like 10 minutes of meditation? Nah, I'll do that some other time. Well, wait a minute. I'm getting old, I'm getting sick, and I'm dying. I only have today. So it's motivation. Those things serve as a motivation to do your practice. Make sense? All right. let's do the chanting. You want to?
Yep. What page?
We are on page 7. The contemplation of the 10.
Okay, correcting qualities.
Yeah.
Okay.
Contemplation of the 10 perfecting qualities. May I be generous and helpful. May I be pure, virtuous, and well disciplined. May I not be selfish. May I be strenuous, energetic, and persevering. May I be patient. May I be able to bear and forbear the wrongs of others. May I be honest and truthful. May I be firm and resolute. May I be kind, compassionate, and friendly. May I be humble, calm, quiet, unruffled, and serene. Discourse on loving kindness. Just as a mother would protect her only child even at her own life's risk, so let everyone cultivate a boundless heart towards all beings. Let our hearts of boundless love pervade the whole world, so that all beings without exception might be happy. Closing dedication of merit. If I have attained any merit by the result of this practice, may it be accredited to all beings everywhere. May they find the source of suffering and extinguish it. May they find the source of happiness and increase it. May all beings dwell in ultimate unalloyed nibbana. We'll bow to the shrine 3 times. And we'll bow to each other with smiles of gratitude. Closing bell.